Okay. Now it works. So welcome everybody to the Lisp session working group meeting. We have a 1 hour meeting today. The usual note well, which you are supposed to have read it during your registration procedure. I know you are familiar with every single line of this note well. A few tips for if you are in the room, you join the Mitico with the local tool, okay? So that in this way you can sign the blue sheets also, okay? You can raise your hand if you want to go to the mic, okay? And wear a mask unless you are at the mic and you are speaking. Sometimes it's better that way. Otherwise, for people that are in remote, the usual procedure with Mitico in remote. Okay. This is a slide that we have already the last time. I think it's important, the code of conduct, so I keep it. We are expected to treat each other with courtesy, which means also to wear a mask because it's protecting each other. Okay. We have technical discussions here, not personal discussions. Okay. The goal is to advance technically the internet and nothing else. Okay. Be ready to contribute. So usual links. So I'm Luigi. Here beside me is Joel. We are the co-chairs. Padma, I don't know if she's online.
She's not.
No.
Taking minutes.
Yeah, if somebody can help with the minutes, that would be very helpful. You have even the link.
Please, you can just
Oh.
use the tool, go to the note-taking tool from the meeting.
If you go to the agenda, the main agenda, you have directly the link that brings you to the Etherpad, the equivalent of it.
And just tell it you want to edit, it'll ask you to re-log in, but once you've done that, you can just edit it. Anybody else can help you, but please, appreciate if somebody's taking point on it.
Yeah. Good.
So if you start from the agenda page, right, show notepad for note takers. That's the link you want. And then you have to click on the pencil icon to switch from just viewing it to being in edit mode. Then it'll ask you to log in again. Then just tell it yes, and you'll be fine. Thank you.
You set? Okay. A quick update on the status. So we are progressing. In the last 2 months, there was quite some work to do. We have 8 documents now in the RFC editor queue, which is good news. So the BIS documents basically are through. LispSec, okay, that was quite some discussions on that one. But yeah, we seem to are ready to actually also unblock some old documents like the introduction document, which is stuck in the queue for I don't know how long anymore. But now with the BIS document going through, we should be good.
Is there any action item left for, let's say, for me? Do I need to do something for LispSec? So being on the RFC FQ means that we're done?
Means you're almost done. What you've got in front of you is when they get to it, the RPC, the production center, will do their job. When they are done, they will send to you an email that says, Auth 48, here's what we did to your document. Please review and approve. There is a list of questions. Please answer them. Do so promptly, please. I've had authors in other contexts
Those are mostly editorial, right?
that they are work by the editors, but they have occasionally noticed, wait, you said X here and Y there. What did you mean? So it's mostly editorial, but they're very sharp and they occasionally spot other things.
And when they see that, they say which one is right. So they go for you for.
That's why answer the questions is important. And God, we've spent long enough on this. Luigi has done more work. I mean, my thanks to Luigi. He's done a tremendous amount of work. So the ask is, authors, when we hit Auth 48, please be responsive. And it looks like the AD wants to chime in to add to that. You got to find the on switch. It's up on the side of the microphone. And you got to slide it all the way up.
You know what? I'm gonna go
Yeah.
for another one.
It might be easier then.
How's that? How's this? Same.
No.
Same thing.
Go to the chair, Mike.
We want that. We got to fix that. We need that working. Here. Hand me that mic while you use this mic.
Man. It's so hard to say something. No, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, the documents. Keep in mind that we requested expedited processing for the whole cluster because of the request of ICAO, right? And there was no way to request processing for just two, so for the whole cluster, all 7 or 8 documents. So what that means is that please, as Joel said, reply to the Auth 48, ideally in 48 hours. I think that's what that's supposed to mean, so that we can get these documents out, because all of them are probably going to come out together in one block. And so we need them to get out so we can meet what ICAO wants us to do. Okay.
So between Luigi, Roberto, and I, we could cover those 7, but I'm worried about the introduction document because it was originally written by Noel. And we have sort,
I go.
oh,
Yeah. Remember, we took it away from Noel.
we took it away from Noel. Okay, yeah, yeah, you got it.
Yeah. I mean, we may need to tell the RPC, don't worry about certain authors who've drifted away, but we can deal with that.
Yeah, let me know. I can override.
And one last question. Is this the last step? So the editor reaching us asking why you did that or editorial changes, this is the last step. Okay.
This is we are actually seeing the end of this mode of work.
So we are almost done.
Celebration, when we actually get the email, it says it's
In London.
it's been assigned and it's supposed to happen.
So no celebration yet. That's from London, I guess.
We were worried if we would celebrate, it would be a jinx.
Don't celebrate until it's published,
Okay.
because you'll actually get you'll actually know what the RFC number is before it's published,
Yeah, true.
because you'll see it in
Right.
the Auth 48.
Yeah, right.
It's not done until it's done.
Celebrate in London.
Yes, good plan. We have another couple of documents that they passed the working group last call. We're working on that. Okay, there is the young model. I think it was already mentioned in the last time. We should pay attention to that and moving it forward. I think it's ready or really close to it. Okay, and then we have a bunch of documents for which we need to focus on them now that the BIS documents are over or almost over. Okay, that's the next task, I would say. The agenda for today, we have first the Lisp reliable transport. Okay, Mark will present that, and then we have Dino with the satellite networks and distinguished name encoding. Unless there is any comment on the agenda, I guess we can move over. Okay, so Mark? Should I run the slides for you?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Reliable transport. Share. Here we go.
Okay. Okay, so we just wanted to provide an update on the reliable transport draft now that it's a working group document. I'm Mark. I'm presenting on behalf of list of authors. Next slide, please. So in terms of updates, what we've done is, we've been integrating all the changes that we've been discussing during the last meetings in this document. In particular, what we are doing, what we've done is provide further details on how do we do the transition from UDP to reliable transport. Then also the draft now incorporates the reliable transport bit that drives the understanding between the ETR and the map server that when to use a reliable transport. Now the document includes Quick as an alternative protocol to use for reliable transport, and discusses a little bit how to select the protocol when you have multiple options. And I reserve the last part of the last slide that you'll see for port allocations, all the discussion that we had in the mailing list. You'll see. Next slide, please. So from UDP to reliable transport, the idea that the draft defense, it's always, you must always first register with Lisp UDP. Once successful UDP registration has happened, that's the only time that you can switch to reliable transport. So what we've done in the draft is clarify how this works, right? In particular, and there is this concept of, as a security measure, the map service should never accept any reliable transport session. It should not even open the possibility until at least one ETR has registered with UDP and has expressed the intent to switch to reliable transport. Once an ETR expresses the intent to switch to reliable transport, that's the time when the map server will put this ETR log in an acceptance list, and that's the only time that from that moment on, it will start accepting connections from this ETR. And the other thing that the draft specifies is whenever the session goes down, an ETR should always switch back to UDP before attempting reliable transport again. Next slide. The second thing that the draft documents is the...
Future Way Technologies, speaking as me. So there's no graceful restart.
No. The idea was to keep things a bit simpler, just to always go back to whenever possible,
So
right?
just because, I mean, you already authenticated, and well, I don't know.
No, it's
I'll go read the
point.
draft a little bit better and ask later.
No, it's a good point. The draft now doesn't consider it, but it's a good idea to tonight. The problem is that you don't know whether you have lost the state whenever there is a problem with reliable transport. So the simpler way that we found was to just go back, right, and restart from scratch.
Just real quick, this is Dino. I didn't understand the question, so I don't know what you're answering.
Oh.
So the question was, he said that if the TCP session goes down, then you have to go back and authenticate again via UDP.
No, you're constantly sending map registers.
Yeah.
And the authentication data is in the map register. So it's a periodic re-authentication. So it's not session-based.
Maybe at the mic.
Okay, so, okay.
Yeah,
right.
Makes sense? Yeah.
So if you just, on the mailing list, if you could just say what you mean, what are you thinking about graceful restart, then we'll understand specifically what you're talking.
Yeah. Okay. So the other thing that the draft now incorporates is the reliable transport bit. This bit is it's just used um, so that the ETR doesn't need to guess whether a map server can accept a reliable transport establishment or not. So the idea is in the map register we set this bit whenever an ETR so that the ETR can express intent to establish a reliable transport. Next slide. And then the map server in the map notify can set the corresponding bit just to tell back the ETR, okay, now you can go ahead and try to establish a reliable transport with me. Next slide. Okay, so what the working group document now incorporates is the list of protocols that can be used to establish the reliable transport. And as part of this list, now we incorporate Quick to the list, as we discussed in the mailing list. One important thing that we've incorporated, and it would be good if we can have a discussion on this, but first thing is that for all protocols, what the draft specifies is that all the sessions will be long-lived, right? So once the session established, this is what, there is this understanding that the state is synchronized between the ETR and the map server, and this is what simplifies some processes with reliable transport. But the second part is the one that we are interested in hearing back is, as of now, the draft specifies that Quick and STTP will use a single stream, right? We know that the protocol offers the possibility to establish multiple streams between the ETR and the map server. But since we are using this for a very specific interface and very specific messages between ETR and map server, for now, the draft just reduces this to single stream. If you guys have different experience and you think we should upgrade to specify multiple streams, we can always do that. Okay, next slide. Okay, this part of the draft answers. Dino had a comment on. Okay, now since we have multiple protocols, how do we choose among them, and what do we do about the potential delay that can come from the fact that, okay, I'm trying one protocol, maybe this protocol fails, next protocol comes, right? So the draft now specifies an order, but just as a suggestion, let's say, with a may. So if the ETR can support the 3 protocols, this would be the suggested order. But also, we also introduced this node saying, okay, since we don't want the information, the mapping information to be delayed while we try to establish the reliable transport, the ETR should always make sure that it's sending complete mapping information with UDP while waiting for the reliable transport to be established.
Okay. First, an observation. I mean, if we need reliable transport, I would choose at least one as mandatory to be implemented with this draft. I mean, otherwise, I mean, just choose one.
Okay.
My suggestion is TCP. This
Yeah.
one makes sense.
It's the one that we have for
widely
now, right?
supported.
That's a good one.
About the order, you can suggest an order. I don't think there is the need to mandate an order in any way, because anyway the choice is limited. So
okay.
But,
Okay.
yeah.
No, that's a good point. Okay. Yeah, we can make TCP mandatory. Good. And next one. Yes. Yeah, this is the last one, and this is what we discussed in the mailing list. What happens with the ports now that we have multiple transports? For TCP, it is easy. We can reuse 4342. One comment that we have is that the Lisp cons draft expired. So officially in the IANA page, 4342 is not reserved anymore.
we have to fix
yeah.
that.
Then for Quick and SCTV, we will need to request new ports. Just one minor note, since we added the IANA considerations in the draft, we got this mail automated, I guess, from IANA specifying a procedure to request these ports. And they also say that the closer we get to last call, then it's when they will act on it. But yeah, I mean, I would like to hear, based on past experience, if you think we need to do anything else than this section.
So I understand, this is Dino. I understand that we need a new UDP port for Quick, but I thought, maybe you might know, Alvaro, SCTP uses the same port number data points as TCP and UDP. So do we need an explicit, I don't know what an SCTP port is. It's just a port, right?
Yeah. I actually went through the SCTP draft, and I saw that they even have a section specifying how to request a new port. I mean, maybe we can map it to 4342 also, but as far as I understood, they have their own registry.
They have their own registry of
Yeah,
ports?
as far as I understood, right? Yeah, if we know different.
But I'm lazy to go there, but
Yeah, no, please go
just
ahead.
to make a go. Yeah, maybe it's just a matter to find a good registry. Maybe we can reuse 43, 42, even for other protocols. It's
Yeah.
just the Lisp port, let's say, and then you have different protocols that are supported. You don't need to have different port
For each
numbers.
photo, yeah. Yeah, the only one, based on what we discussed, I think for Quick we need one, right? So that the map server knows that it's not, let's say, legacy Lisp UDP, but it needs to
Yeah,
switch to,
Quick may be more trickier.
yeah, but
at
yeah,
least for ACTP, I think 43, 42 should work.
okay,
If
perfect.
it's not taken, I mean.
Yeah, yeah, I can check it out.
Just makes it simple.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was the last slide.
Any further comments or questions?
What?
No?
Thank you.
Thanks. So, Dino.
Do you mind if we do the distinguished name first?
Okay. You can advise this
think
the
it'll be-
agenda
I think
bashing
it'll be
period.
agenda bashing.
But
Oh, actually,
okay, no problem. no problem.
I just think it'll be quicker.
We are
I
flexible.
hope.
We have nice chairs, you see it.
Very nice chairs. They're very nice chairs. Okay, I'm going to give an update on the -15 version of name encoding. Next slide. Okay, just to give you an overview of what it is, we can encode what we call distinguished names or just character strings that can be put in an EID record or an RLOC record of any of the Lisp messages. We use the AFI encoding like we do for AFI 1 and 2 for IPv4 and IPv6. So it's just basically a 2-byte AFI 17 value followed by an ASCII string that's null terminated. It's pretty straightforward. And it's useful to provide self-documenting the mapping database records. You could also use it to group a bunch of things together. So maybe you want to associate all EIDs on a train with the name of the train. So you would register to the mapping system a name called train 154, and then you would have a list of EIDs that are currently in the train. It might have some mobility benefits there. There's a lot of other sorts of things you could do as well. The idea here is that we don't want to break the semantics of this string with power of 2 in addresses. So DDT and Lisp Decent, those two mapping database systems could support this. So for instance, if you did a lookup on /root/dino/slide/Philly, it could match /root/dino at the DDT root, which would be the delegation authority for that part of the name. And then the children could then support /slides or /slides_Philly. So it looks like it's more specific, just like it would be with a power of 2 address. So rather than, it wouldn't have bit boundaries, it could have arbitrary boundaries just based on, so the designer of the mapping system would have to decide if the slashes were the boundaries, because they could be variable length. So map request lookups typically in the use cases that I've implemented and that are currently written in specs do exact match, but you could also do partial matches as well. Like if I looked up /root/Dino/Philly and /Philly wasn't registered, but /root/Dino was, you could get that returned. And that would just be a natural thing that map server would do with no changes. Next slide. This is example of what I implemented in my open source code is this is a registration entry in the map server. The EID prefix in instance ID 1 is called G-XTR1. This is just an XTR that's sitting in Google in a VM. And the RLOC set is basically these guys. The RLOC set basically has these two RTRs because it's going through a NAT, but you could also associate a name with an RLOC record. So it's encoded in that RLOC record. This is an encoding in the EID record. This is the encoding in the RLOC record. Okay. These are the current working group and individual submission drafts that are using the distinguished name stuff. So the ECDSA authentication is using it to store the hash value when you want to look public keys up in the mapping system to verify signatures. We use it for grouping type stuff in predictive RLOCs. And we use it for encoding. If you use the LCAF geo coordinates as an EID and you want to map it to a name, like say you have the geo coordinates of Los Angeles, you may want it to map to a name, which is called character string Los Angeles. You could do that sort of thing. The Lisp policy distribution guys are using, there's a lot of policy stuff that they want to use that are going to depend on distinguished names. And in all these cases, they're describing how the structure of the name should be and what the collision opportunities or avoidance is done in those. That was a comment that was done on the spec. Uberlay, simple NAT, and the list incast stuff refers to this draft. Okay. So we started the effort. The draft was built in 2016. There was a lot of quiet period around here in 2020. There were some updates, and we just made an update now this past week to reflect, make it more clear how collision detection is done if there's two different use cases using names and how they don't clash. So we added that to the spec, and that was Joel's comment, and we think we satisfied the comment, right? Okay, next. So we addressed the collision commentary that Joel had in /15, and I requested this past weekend to request this as a working group document. I sent that request to lisp@ietf.org, and it's really it's a very small 2-page spec, so it doesn't take very much to read through it. So I wanted to try to request working group last call now, but it's up to you guys.
We really should request adoption, go through adoption, and then turn around and request. You don't even have to repost it. We can mark it as adopted using the exact same draft, and then we can turn around and last call it.
And in last call, that's when we switch it to IETF-Lisp from Fibonacci.
We can never, we cannot even switch it if you don't want to.
Oh, it doesn't matter to me.
The point is,
I don't think I'm the bottleneck.
I want to go through the adoption call so folks have the chance to comment on it in the proper process, and then we'll do the last call.
So that
Look,
two
we
weeks.
can go through all of that before London.
Okay, sounds good.
Hi, Alberto Rodriguez. I'm happy with the process. Please rename it before sending it to the ASG.
So
Because we've had people complain about the names before, and so just to avoid
They're
complaints.
wrong, but okay, we'll make sure it gets removed.
You know.
So you wait 2 weeks and to see if it's should
We
be.
issued the adoption call. You send a note to the list. Actually, I think you
Did
did.
that.
Yeah.
We
can issue.
we will issue the adoption call next week.
Okay.
We give everybody the amount of time. It'll be 2 weeks.
Okay.
Actually, we may make it 3 weeks because it's August. We'll then say it's adopted. Please repost with the right name. You'll repost.
Okay.
You'll then send an email saying, can we last call this?
Okay.
We'll last call it 2 weeks. If there's a problem, we'll fix it. And if not, We'll
Yeah.
hand it to Alvaro and we'll pick somebody in the working group to shepherd it.
Maybe ask
Okay.
for review. Joel did it already, but
Okay.
addition. In the meantime, I mean, when it is adopted, we can also ask for early review from the security area or and other areas, transport area, etc., so that we speed up the process a little bit.
Yeah, asking for early reviews doesn't speed up the process.
But you have to have it at some point. So,
Yeah, no,
you know.
but
And
they will
often
still
on a-
insist on doing it as part
But,
of.
and they will
Yeah,
also
well-
ask what our intention of the spec is. Is it full standard, proposed standard, experimental, all that? And I don't know if we're ready,
Yeah,
because
but
those other
listen,
drafts depend on
It
it.
can only go PS.
Yeah, okay,
It can only go PS.
Yes, okay.
That's
Okay.
no problem.
that's fine.
But there's no point in worrying about early reviews. There's just not going to be enough weeks in here to waste any other energy.
Okay.
We'll just make it go through the process expeditiously.
Got it.
Sharon is on the queue. Wait, there was Sharon. Sharon, want to ask something?
Yeah. So, I think this is, of course, a great idea and a way for people to understand how to solve problems using a routed namespace, which Lisp is uniquely qualified to do. But it's hard to explain that use of Lisp without being able to discuss use cases as part of the charter. So at least a select use cases possibility to discuss should be added to the charter for us to really show the power of these routed namespace.
Sorry?
Go back to the slide with the yellow stuff on it. One more. So all these drafts that depend on distinguished names are in the charter to solve problems that are in the charter. Does anybody disagree with that? I mean, well, some of the individual submissions like Lisp Simple Nat is just an informational type RFC of talking about my implementation of Nat, and Uberlays is still in design. So I don't know if those are in the charter, but
I think you're missing VPNs also, right? In this list.
Does-
The Lisp VPN draft.
does VPNs use,
I think the
distinguish-
extranet section has some.
because I
distinguished
looked
names.
at that draft and I didn't see any reference to distinguished names, so that's the question.
Oh, okay.
So if it does use it, we need to put a reference in there, okay. But okay, well, case in point, you made a great point, because VPN's a very important draft,
Yeah.
because it's instant ID, which everything uses, yeah. Is that okay, Sharon? Did we answer your question or concern?
Is that we should add use cases to the charter.
Yeah, that's another
Ja-
question. so,
Yeah, that's a different question in the sense that to change the charter, we have to recharter, which is not how to say. I mean, the charter right now has a strong focus basically on the BIS documents, so that to work on the proposed standard version of Lisp, which we almost done. Once we are really done with that, we can even open the discussion for our rechartering to refocus the work of the working group, I guess. So this is something that we can discuss, but not today, let's say. So I don't know if
Today.
I'm not going to suggest we discuss it today, but what I'm going to say is that if everything goes to plan, we should within a month publish the revised specs, right? So within a month, if there's a charter, we can start the process, right? The formal process of approving the charter and the IESG and all that stuff.
Will disturb the process, you said?
Start.
Start. Okay.
Yes. So in other words, you don't have to decide on a charter today,
No.
but you don't have to wait till London or anything like that. We can probably recharter between now and London.
Yeah.
Right. Assuming that there's time for you guys to discuss it.
okay. Any other question or comment on this one, Albert?
Yeah, I have two questions, actually. I'm just reading the draft right now. You're not specifying how to use this.
So what we recommended is that each of the use case documents that you see here on the screen is saying how to use it.
Okay, so that I'm going to find that here somewhere. Okay, and the other thing is this uses ASCII, not UTF-8 or something like that for internationalization stuff.
I made a reference in there of the actual encoding.
Yeah, it says ASCII. But
Is the reference to say ASCII?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
That's what they wanted. We discussed it.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
I
mean,
mean, that's the
you're
question that's definitely going to come up at some point. Why not use
International-
UTF? Because, you know.
The internationalization part of it, why not? Is that what you mean?
Right, exactly.
Okay. I mean, I don't have an opinion either way, and we could add it at this point, but do you guys that depend on the use cases care? Because we can, maybe you want to put names in kanji or something like that, right?
Yeah, for now, no. Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
we've been, ASCII has been enough, but yeah, also
Okay.
no opinion either way.
So I'll make that update. It's UTF-8 is what you
Right,
think
and
that's
you know,
all.
so in other places like BGP that we've been putting strings, they've been in UTF-8, and we actually ran into a problem with one community thing where the space wasn't enough. Because, for example, in Cyrillic, you need a lot more characters or something like that.
I'm sorry, no, it
No?
turns out there's a big problem. We can't just go to UTF-8.
Okay.
If we want to go to UTF-8, we would have to redo the structure completely because you
Right.
rely on zero termination.
Yes.
Zero termination does not work for UTF-8. So it's either we leave it the way it is or we redo it completely. You can't just go to UTF-8.
It sounds like to me we should keep it the way it is, and if we need other types of character sets, we build a LCAF. And then it's a more flexible. What do you
Okay,
think?
just be ready for the question, right? Because someone else is going to ask.
Yeah.
That
No, it's a question
And will
that
they
will get raised.
will they accept our answer that we want to keep it in ASCII?
But can we put it? Can we put it explicitly on the draft as a statement that says for the use cases discussed, the ASCII encoding looks sufficient. Does it make sense or not?
I
don't
think
know.
it says what it says.
Right.
But the question will come up and whoever's shepherding it will have to be prepared to deal with it.
Okay.
Sounds like you.
No problem. I mean, it's
No, we'll
Is
probably
the-
get somebody else to do it. We should be getting other people to
Okay,
shepherd it.
okay, whatever.
Luigi shepherded all those hard ones.
Yeah, he needs a break.
some vacation.
It's August.
Any more question or comments on this one? Okay, let's move to the next satellite. Here we go.
Okay, so this draft is a first stab at looking at using the satellite networks as an underlay and running Lisp as an overlay on top of that. So it's kind of got to stand on your head a little bit, but I'll show you in a diagram in a second. So the high level goals for this draft is we know that a Lisp overlay can run over any IP packet delivery underlay, be it IPv4 or IPv6. And if the satellite network can deliver IP packets, which existing, the satellite networks I know that are in operation today can do that, we can have Lisp run as an overlay on top of that satellite network, without touching anything in the satellite network. And this would be just another example of how we can run Lisp over, like we do the capital I internet, where the RLOCs are on the ground, or 3GPP network, where we run Lisp on the eNode Bs, or in the ICO network, the aeronautical network, where we run Lisp on the ground stations. We would just run Lisp on the ground stations here that have satellite links up. This is not necessarily how it works, but kind of what are the benefits. But as always, any Lisp underlay or any underlay network doesn't store EID state. So that would be the same with the satellite network. The satellite network is unaware that Lisp is running over it. It's just like it's kind of unaware of any other applications that run over it too. So it's it's actually ignoring the satellite network and just using it as an IP delivery system. The overlay requires the underlay to deliver packets to RLOC addresses, and the underlay can route to. So the assumption is when an ITR prepends a packet and uses the outer destination address, we assume that the underlay could forward that packet, and that's what we call a routing locator or RLOC. The underlay network can transport IPv4, IPv6 packets and can be dual stack, just like it can on the terrestrial network. Okay. And when path optimization is available in the underlay, just like on the capital I internet now, if you're running segment routing and you want the XTR to influence the path of the underlay, it could prepend source routes or segment routes in the packet. This would be the same in the satellite network as well if we wanted to use any kind of source routing, be it relative to the satellite network or using IETF mechanisms. Next. So here's a pictorial. We see those satellites up in space. We call that the underlay. And we see those links between satellites called ISLs, intersatellite links. Those are typically one or more laser links that go between the satellites in low Earth orbit in LEO. And it turns out that this is what Amazon is about to deploy, as well as SpaceX doing with Starlink. Okay, so what we do is that what we have on the ground are the overlay nodes and the mapping system. Okay, so Lisp, an XTR will run on the ground station that has a satellite link that goes up. Today, most communications that happen is you go up in one satellite and then down. If you can go like the quarter of the Earth, you can do it with one satellite because of where the satellites are positioned in LEO. In geosynchronous, that was always the way because it was much higher up, added delay, but it can capture more of the Earth's surface. Here, it may not do that. So if you want to go from, say, like San Francisco to London, you might have to go up a satellite, an ISL to another satellite, and then down. Okay. But the idea is that Lisp doesn't care about this. Whatever the satellite has to do to deliver a packet from this RLOC to that RLOC, it just does that. Okay. Next slide. So these are the sort of features. Sorry for the busyness of the slide, but we'll go through one each. The EIDs can roam around ground station XTRs, just like the mobility draft, the EID mobility draft says. It's no different than if the EIDs are roaming in a VM on a top of rack switch. It's the same sort of machinery that's used. So EID mobility and even predictive RLOCs can be used even in this scenario because these are Lisp features and we don't depend on the underlay to do anything here. Also, the ground station XDRs can load split traffic across different RLOCs on the satellite network or across RLOCs where an RLOC could be up in space and one could be terrestrial on the ground as well. And of course, all the packets can be Lisp cryptoed as well. So if they go up to space and you don't want anybody to snoop on them, even though the Russians are leaving the space center now, you could encrypt the packets. And of course, the GSXDRs can use alternate paths when maybe the satellite network is not totally connected. And I give two examples here. Normally, you would go on an XTR, you would go up to a satellite and then maybe go across an ISL to another satellite and then down to another XTR. Maybe the ISLs are, because the satellites are always moving, the lasers are going up and down all the time, you may not have that connectivity. But of course, we can use Lisp traffic engineering and actually encapsulate to an RTR. So we would go up from this XTR to a satellite and then back down to an RTR that would take off the outer header and re-encapsulate it to that RLOC and then go up to a satellite and down. So those sort of traffic engineering features are available by just using regular Lisp. Okay. And we could use the telemetry stuff that we proposed in that draft, this draft here, to actually test the satellite network so we know which paths are good. And we could actually, if the satellite network, each satellite is an IP hop, we could actually trace route. We can measure one-way latency, both forward and reverse, hop counts, all that kind of stuff, just like we do the terrestrial underlay. Boy, it's hard to breathe and present at the same time. haven't done this yet. Ground stations XTRs can offer EID multicast service by doing head-end replication using any underlay multicast service. So if the satellite network is going to provide a multicast service, we can use it. Otherwise, you can just unicast replicate over it, and we know that works as well. It's not clear to me, and it hasn't been spec'd out if there's a multicast service that's going to be supported in the satellite networks that are being deployed today or are planning to be deployed. That should be interesting work. Like I said, this is kind of a first stab. We're learning more about what the underlay could do, and are there advantages to make the overlay work better if we can take advantage of the underlay. It's kind of two-sided sword where you sometimes want to always ignore the underlay because you just want it to deliver simple packets, and then you just want all the features to be on the edge in the overlay. And of course, if you have a mix of Lisp and non-Lisp sites, all the inner working features. So if you have somebody, an EID that's sitting behind a ground station XTR that wants to talk to google.com that's not a Lisp site, all the machinery, the Lisp mat stuff and the PXTR machinery can work as well. The only thing we didn't talk about is, do you want to put any Lisp nodes on the satellite nodes and make them routers? Not sure yet. So if anybody has any thoughts on that, and if it's useful, we could determine that. I don't know if there's any advantage other than maybe latency to do a decap up there rather than down here, you know. So next. So I was just questioned, should we make it a working group document? I don't have any preference. I mean, we could work on it as an individual submission. I think the work we have left to do is to look closer at the satellite networks and see what's going on, and maybe try to do some prototyping. I think my open source implementation could work as is. I just need a box with a satellite link. So my plans is to call up SpaceX and say, can I put some open source code on your ground station, and let's see what they would do, what they would say. I don't know, but I'm going to try. But you know, even if it's one hop away from a Starlink box, it might serve the same purpose because the server could, you know what I mean? So we can still test it. So the whole point is if we encapsulate a packet and the Starlink router is not doing Lisp, but at least it knows how to route the packet to the RLOC and it will go up, right? So now when it comes down, the way their service works now, when it comes down, it always comes to a Google data center. So you'll have to deliver it to a non-EID or something like that. But you know, if we could put an XTR in a VM in a Google Cloud or whatever and test it that way. So I'm planning on doing some experiments with that. You guys are welcome to help.
Experiments are good.
Yeah, oh yeah. I think that's it. Is that right? Yeah, I think
It looks like a question.
Question and comments?
Have you given any consideration to mobility in the draft? I haven't read it, sorry, but
so the devices that are on the ground that are moving from ground station to ground station, they'll use EID mobility according to the draft we did.
So what moves is not the XTR, it's the
the XTR moving. Well, this is an interesting new property that we've never seen before, because even though the XTR is stationary, normally when EIDs move, they get new RLOCs because they're landing somewhere new, right? But it turns out what's happening is now the XTR is actually stationary, right? But the satellites are moving in and out, and the question is, will the satellite network reassign the RLOC to that ground station? But if it does, it's just like the EID moves, so it is kind of like a mobility event. But all our machinery will work in that case as well. So
interesting,
kind of cool. I think we'll see. We'll see if it introduces new problems. But I've done this testing before where I would run Lisp at my house, and I would disconnect my cable link all the time. And every time I disconnect, well, I think it was a few years ago with AT&T DSL. Every time I disconnect and reconnected, AT&T would give me another address. So I was testing my RLOCs changing all the time, and I was trying to do that fast. And
so it's the same with Starlink. Okay.
So this is not a new problem from the overlays point of view.
Kenji?
Kenji, China Mobile. You know, I haven't read through your draft, but from your description and talk today, and also you said, okay, so far there are only one SL link. For multi ISL link things, you did not mention anything about the dynamics about how the rotation, orbital movement, those type of things. So I don't know why it's satellite related. I think because I can give you analogy, you can put your R lock on your car and you keep driving, and then that's it. It's not satellite at all, but it's still. So why is satellite? It makes such a big deal for the draft. Thank you.
Oh, it's just another underlay that we can run over. And if we want to reach rural places, which is what Starlink's use case is, we may want to run. It's not the only way you can do things. I mean, if you're on a car, if you're driving in a car and Lisp is running in your car and your RLOC is changing because it's on a 4G or 5G network, so be it. But if that car needs to communicate with something that's in a, up in Montana, northern Montana or something, and they don't have internet access except for Starlink, then you run Lisp on that side, and then they can move between ground stations in their local area. The car's moving around in this urban area, and then maybe the cell phone's moving around in this rural area.
In terms of technology, I still cannot see the technical difference. Like, yes, I understand. More in order to talk some people in Mahana, some place nowhere, you have to use satellite. But still, in terms of technology, to me, it's just like it's a moving car. Have no difference from just like a satellite movement.
Are you questioning that running over satellite's not useful? Is
No,
that
no,
what
no,
you're?
no, no, no. Because
Okay.
tomorrow I'm going to have I have a draft on the satellite, but I really try to understand why, this is satellite. Suppose you try to use some satellite technology that is significant for the list or for your draft. Is that the, haven't read through. So in your draft, have you talked anything about like satellite technologies that will make your draft more significant? Or it's just like, okay, you are using some underlay network that is keep moving?
We have a Lisp draft called Lisp Mobile Network. That talks about how you support layer 3 mobility inside a 3GPP network. In that use case, we say Lisp can run on the E node Bs. So when cell phones move from one E node B to another E node B, they don't have to change their IP address and their connections stay up. Okay, so that's a case because cell phones connect to towers. Okay, now we have these other things called ground station XTRs that have RF links up to aircraft. That's what the OGCOW standard is doing. And so planes are moving around, and their EID's up there, and they're connecting to ground stations. And so that's just another subnetwork using that wireless network. So now we have satellite, which is yet another one. And of course, we have the terrestrial internet, right? That's all. Okay. Does that make sense? Yeah, sure.
Eric Klein. Oh, sorry, Eric Klein, Illyria. Forgive me for, I'm not a terribly well-versed Lisp person. Is there a presumption that the GSXDRs have some terrestrial control plane connectivity all the time, or is it possible that they may only have control plane connectivity over the orbital domain?
Yeah, good question.
And if so, does that have implications for the control plane reliability?
Yeah, great, really good question. Can you go back to the diagram? So the mapping system, the assumption we're making in the first version of the draft is that the mapping system is on the ground, and that's the control plane that we use for this guy to find that guy's RLOC. But it turns out that the mapping system IP addresses to access it, the map servers and resolvers, are all in RLOC space. So you arguably could put the mapping system somewhere there, assuming that the satellite can route to that RLOC space as well. So you could do one or the other, or you could look. This mapping system could have map servers that are load split. So we don't know yet what's the best thing to do. But I'm taking the point that you're making, that if we put it up in the satellite network, that there will be less reliability because they're moving. The mapping system is moving now, where here it's kind of stationary.
Well, there's also, yeah, just even if everything's working correctly, there's just higher latencies, right?
Yeah, good point.
So
Yep.
the
Yeah.
TCP stuff will need some kind of a PEP in front of it, and yeah,
Right.
anyway.
Yeah, definitely agree. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have one last question. I mean, if you go to this slide, yeah, you say across in the second bullet or across R-locks in space. If in space you have R-locks, it means that the satellites have to run Lisp. They have to be XTRs, right? Because
Oh.
otherwise, just an underlay unaware of
I'll
Lisp.
show you what I mean. I understand your question.
So-
Could you go to the diagram?
Like here.
Okay, so let's say this XTR has an R-loc that's always reachable via the satellite. This XTR, that XTR on the right-hand side could have a terrestrial link that's also accessible on the ground. So there'll be two R-locs that you can load split your traffic over.
Oh, okay.
That's
I
what it
see.
is.
Okay, I see
So
your
what
point.
you're doing is you're load splitting for different flows on the ground and going up and over.
Okay. Well, this was not clear. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, I'll try to make that more clear, especially in the draft.
Yeah.
How's it going, Mike Cisco?
Hi, Mike.
I was wondering if you gave any consideration if there's any MTU limitations between the GSXDR and the satellite, because I know that like the U.S. military and these guys, they have crypto devices in front. And they're always struggling to get like GRE and MPLS and this whole alphabet
Yeah.
soup thing up there.
Yeah, I don't
So-
know yet. That's
All
a
right,
great,
okay.
that's a great question, and we should look at that. Of course, we always assume 1500 or 1266 for IPv6 or whatever. You know. So, but yeah, that's a good point. And if there are MTU issues, we'll deal with them like we do in 6831, where we have those three options.
Okay. So if there are no more questions or comments, there is Jordi.
Well, just this out of curiosity. Well, the ISL links, they usually change between the satellites, as far as I know. Do you think it would make sense converting each satellite into a mobile node, at least mobile node? Or it's-
From a list perspective,
yeah,
like give it an EID and let it, let's see.
yeah. So they can. So I mean, the mobility use case, no? Since you have a lot of links that are changing continuously, the satellites.
So I think what you're saying is a satellite could be a Linux system that's part of the overlay, and we assign it an EID because we want to talk to it on the overlay.
Yeah,
That's why I
not
interpreted your
necessarily
question.
talk to it, no. But you have so you have satellites that are the topology, the point of attachment is always changing, no. So they have R-locks.
Yeah, right.
So I don't know. I
So
was just
you
wondering.
wanna-
So I
you
didn't
want
read
to
it out.
track what R-locks. Well, it's not, I mean, these satellites can move around and they're probably not going to be re-IP addressed. So their R-locks are going to stay the same, but you're not going to be able to reach them because they're on the other side of the earth.
Okay, yeah. So
Yeah,
it's, okay,
so-
so it's not the different IP address; it's different place.
It's
physical place.
unreachable, right?
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
And then 40 minutes later, it's going to come around and you're going to see it again, right? But of course, this guy doesn't know because he's homing to a satellite and that satellite's come in and out. He just has connectivity. He doesn't even really care what he is. Remember, the R-loc that he's sending a packet to is on the ground, and the satellite is just a transit network.
Yeah,
moving
no, but
pack-
it was like a different use case that I was considering.
Yeah. But I mean, I haven't considered, what if you want a satellite system to be an EID node that's part of the overlay, and because it will go out of phase, do you want to be able to reach it on the overlay? It's a little more complex use case, and we'd have to see a really strong requirement why we would need that. But right now, I just want to use the satellite as it exists and see how well it delivers IP packets, right?
This is something we can discuss more on the mailing list. We are, time is up, basically. Tianji, if you can also send your comment on the mailing list so that can be discussed more and clarified, that would be helpful. Other than that, welcome. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Dino, and see you again in London.
You can't just, allow UTF-8, it doesn't work.
No, no. But yeah.